He didn't look like a man history would stop for. Not anymore. He looked like a man who had lived long enough to see his own shadow outgrow him, long enough to feel time as weight, not seconds. His shoulders curved slightly, not from weakness, but from years of carrying things nobody else saw. His steps slow, deliberate, not fragile, just honest. Honest steps from a life that had marched too far and through too much. Thomas Halley stood outside the small-town courthouse for a moment before going in, staring at the old American flag hanging from the pole. Its colors were faded. Wind moved it softly, like a tired salute. Tom lifted his hand instinctively, halfway to his brow, then stopped. Old habits wrestled with a world that had forgotten why they mattered. He adjusted the chain under his collar. The metal rested against his chest, warm from his skin. Purple ribbon, gold pin, edges worn smooth from years of being held. It never clinked, never rattled. He kept it tucked inside his shirt like a heartbeat. Hidden, but alive. Not a trophy. Not pride. A memory. A promise. He pulled open the heavy courthouse door. The air inside was colder, sterile, like a place built for rules instead of people. Fluorescent lights hung overhead, buzzing like flies. A security guard glanced up, barely noticing him. People stood in line, tapping feet, scrolling phones, complaining quietly about waiting too long. They didn't see him. Or maybe they saw him and thought nothing of it. Just another old man. Just another life drifting by. Tom picked a seat in the back row. Always the back, the vantage point soldiers choose without thinking. His posture straight. His hands folded over each other like prayer. But his eyes, they carried oceans, desert sandstorms, foggy patrol mornings, the kind of eyes that have seen sunrise as both a gift and a warning. He listened to names being called, fines issued, people arguing about parking tickets and speeding violations, as if the universe balanced on them. The world had changed. People had forgotten the weight of real problems. Someone whispered behind him, loud enough for him to hear. Grandpa probably got lost on his way to the VA clinic. Snickers followed. Tom didn't turn. If life had taught him anything, it was that noise never deserved attention. Instead, he touched the metal through his shirt, fingertips pressing gently against his son's memory. His breath caught. Even after all these years, his simplest memories could crack him like glass. A porch swing creaking in summer heat. Baseball gloves slapping leather. A boy laughing, saying, "Come on, Dad, throw it faster." Boots thumping across hardwood one last morning. A knock on the door. A folded flag. Silence that never left. He blinked. Came back to the courtroom. To the low buzz of irritated strangers. To fluorescent glare. Nothing in this room knew about war. Nothing in this room smelled like sand, metal, or blood. This was a world that punished turn signals and forgot sacrifice. Then his name echoed. Defendant 27, Thomas Hall. He rose slowly, every movement a reminder that time always collects its debt. He walked toward the bench. A young man not older than his granddaughter sighed dramatically behind him. The bailiff tapped his pen impatiently. Tom reached the defense table and placed one hand on it lightly, steadying himself. The judge didn't look up. Not at first. He shuffled papers, adjusted his robe, cleared his throat like someone who enjoyed power more than fairness. Name: Thomas Halley, Your Honor. Age: 72. A short laugh popped from the back like a stray spark. Tom ignored it. He'd ignored worse: bullets, explosions, screams. A kid giggling meant nothing. This young judge, clean haircut, expensive watch, the confidence of someone who never had to bury their world, finally lifted his eyes. They landed on Tom's collar. on the small movement under the fabric where the metal chain pressed. "What is that?" The judge's tone sharpened. Tom instinctively reached toward the chain. "A medal, sir." The judge leaned forward. "Remove it. This courtroom follows professional appearance standards." Tom froze. His jaw twitched. "It's not jewelry, Your Honor." "In here it is." A quiet shock rippled through the room. Someone stopped typing on their phone. The bailiff shifted, uncomfortable, but said nothing. "Take it off," the judge repeated, impatience creeping into his voice, "or you will be held in contempt." The world slowed, not dramatically, but painfully. Like time itself didn't want to witness this moment. Tom lifted the chain. His hands shook, not from weakness, but from weight of memory, of love, of loss. He placed the medal on the table gently, like it was glass, like it could break, like a part of him might break with it. His hand lingered there, fingers resting on metal that had once hung on a young man's chest, pinned in a moment meant to honor, not bury. Guilty or not guilty? The judge asked. Tom stared at the medal. His voice cracked like a dry stick. "Not guilty, Your Honor. You failed to signal." Tom nodded. "I did. I was." Thinking. "About what?" The judge asked, annoyed. "My boy." A ripple of quiet moved across the gallery. The judge exhaled sharply, losing patience. "This isn't about personal tragedy, Mr. Hall. It's about law." Tom's eyes slowly lifted to meet his. They were calm eyes. Eyes that had seen explosions and endings in mornings where he wasn't sure he'd live to see night. Law doesn't stop memory. "Sir," he said softly. The room still silence, real silence. Arrived, heavy, thick, like the air before a storm. Tom looked back at the medal again. He used to sit beside me in the truck, he whispered. He'd lean over and change the radio when he thought I wasn't paying attention. A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. Said I drove too slow. Said life was waiting for him. A breath. Fragile. Honest. He was 23. He was 23. Tom's voice faded, almost swallowed by the courtroom's walls. For a moment, nobody breathed. A memory hit him, sudden and unforgiving like a wave, crashing through a breaking dam. Sand. Heat. The weight of armor on a young man's shoulders. Boots kicking dust into a warm Afghan sunrise. His boy, Aaron, laughing as if war couldn't touch him. As if bullets respected smiles. "Come on, Dad," Aaron had once said. "You can't worry forever." Tom had just smiled. Fathers always pretend to believe their sons will live forever. Even when somewhere deep down, they know the world doesn't make promises like that. The judge shifted uncomfortably. He didn't understand what door he had forced open. Some scars aren't visible, but once you tug the thread, the whole soul can unravel. A man near the back whispered, voice cracking, "Purple Heart? And a gold star? That's his son's." A ripple, realization, shame spreading like slow fire. The room blurred in Tom's eyes, and suddenly he wasn't in a courtroom anymore. He was in a Humvee. Desert wind howling outside like a wounded animal. Team moving fast, too fast, because there'd been a radio call. Ambush. Marines pinned. His boy's unit. Static through the headset. Shouting. Gunfire. A voice. Trembling but strong. "Dad, I'll be okay." Thomas Howell had been a Marine his whole life. He'd fought, led, bled, but nothing terrified him like hearing his son in a firefight. Then, memory shattered like glass. A flash. A boom that didn't sound like thunder. It sounded like the earth itself screaming. Heat, dust, silence that crushed the world in one breath. Tom's hand in the courtroom tightened, nails digging into his palm, grounding him so he didn't drown in the past. A woman in the front row wiped her eyes. A teenager stopped chewing gum. Even the judge looked smaller now, his authority shrinking under the weight of something real, something holy. Tom inhaled slowly, grounding himself. His name was Corporal Aaron Hawley, he whispered. United States Marine Corps. A pause so heavy it made the lights hum louder. He died saving 2 men in his squad. He never wanted recognition. He just wanted to come home. A veteran seated quietly near the aisle stood unprompted, back straight, hand to heart. A silent salute only warriors understand. Tom noticed, just barely. A flicker of gratitude warmed the edges of his grief. The judge swallowed hard. His voice wavered. I didn't know. Tom shook his head, not angry, just tired. You didn't ask. A courtroom clerk, who once thought this job was boring, now stared at the floor. Embarrassed by every moment she had rolled her eyes today, Tom's fingers brushed the metal again, soft as prayer. It was pinned to him before he left. I thought it would come back pinned to his chest again. A trembling breath. It did not. The memory kept bleeding. Aaron's funeral. The sky too blue, too calm, wrong for grief. The bugle playing taps. The rifle volley cracking the air. Tom's hands shaking as they placed that folded flag in his lap. A mother would have sat beside him, but she wasn't here anymore. Grief had taken her long before illness did. My wife didn't survive losing him, Tom whispered. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't part of any case. But some pain demands to be spoken when silence starts to suffocate the heart. The judge lowered his gaze. He finally looked human. The bailiff, once bored, once annoyed, blinked back tears. He saw himself in that boy. He saw his own mother in the empty chair beside the coffin in Tom's memory. A soft cough in the gallery. Someone breaking under emotion. Someone else whispered a prayer. Tom's voice broke again. No shame, no holding it in. He was all I had left. The courtroom didn't feel like a courthouse anymore. It felt like a church, a battlefield, a graveyard. All at once, for the first time since entering, Tom's knees shook, not from age, but from carrying the weight of remembering too loudly in a world it prefers silence when stories hurt. The judge finally spoke, quiet, humble, unsure. Mr. Hawley? Tom gently raised a hand. A soldier's gesture. A father's patience. A man who has seen enough of the world to know when someone is trying and failing to find the right words. You don't need to speak yet, Your Honor, he said softly. His tone wasn't bitter, just honest. Heart bare and trembling, like an American flag at half-mast in evening wind. I didn't come here asking for respect, he continued. I didn't come here trying to remind the world what my family gave. He looked down at his medal. I came because I forgot to use a turn signal. A few people let out soft, broken laughs through tears. Relief laughing. Pain laughing. Tom closed his eyes for a moment. The courtroom waited, breathless, like every soul in the room knew they were witnesses to something sacred, something they had no right to rush. When you told me to remove it, he touched the metal again. I felt like I was putting him down a second time. A single tear finally slipped. Not dramatic, not loud, just real. A man doesn't cry because he's weak. He cries because what he loves was strong enough to break him. A hush had fallen so deep across the room that even the fluorescent lights seemed afraid to buzz too loud. Nobody looked at the clock now. Nobody sighed with boredom. The petty world of parking tickets and paperwork had dissolved, drowned beneath the simple, brutal truth of sacrifice. Of a boy who didn't come home. Of a father who carried him anyway. The judge opened his mouth, trying again. Mr. Hawley. I offer my deepest. Tom shook his head slowly, gently. This world offers words too easily. Words didn't bring my boy home. He wasn't angry. Anger was for those who still hoped to change things. Tom had lived long enough to know that grief is not a fire, but a stone. You don't burn, you carry. A moment later, a soft scrape echoed, the sound of a chair sliding back. One man stood, a younger veteran in worn boots, tattoos peeking above his collar. A quiet salute formed at his brow. Then another stood, an older woman, silver hair, trembling hands, placing her palm over her heart. Her eyes wet. A Gold Star mother recognizes another without being told. And a teenage boy stood awkward, unsure, because his father once whispered that you stand when a hero walks the room. And this felt like one of those times. A heartbeat later, the entire courtroom was on its feet. No command, no signal, just instinct, human and holy and overdue. Tom blinked, overwhelmed. He hadn't asked for this. He had spent years trying not to be seen, trying not to disturb the world with his pain. Slowly, like someone carrying something sacred, the bailiff approached. He lifted the medal again, with both hands this time, not like an object, but like a folded flag, and placed it back around Tom's neck. The ribbon rested against his heart, like it never left. "Sir," the bailiff said, his voice shaking with pride or guilt or both, "you never take this off again. Not here, not anywhere." Tom gave a small nod. "I don't wear it for me," he whispered. "I wear it so he isn't alone." The judge rose from his bench, humbled down to something true. All the power in his robe felt paper-thin now. "Mr. Hawley," he said, voice low, fragile, breaking, "there will be no fine. No record, no penalty." He paused, swallowed hard. "Thank you. For your son. And for carrying him this far." Tom didn't smile. Some wounds don't make room for smiles, instead. He steadied himself on the table, fingers brushing over wood, scarred by decades of meaningless cases, and turned toward the exit as he began to walk. The silence followed him like a guard of honor. Shoes scuffed softly against the polished floor. His steps slow, but they felt different now. Not weighed down. Carried. Carried by understanding, finally. By a room that remembered what the world tries too hard to forget. Just before the door, Tom paused. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. But his voice carried with the firmness of a Marine and the softness of a father. "If you see a parent wearing a medal," he said quietly, "don't ask who they served with. A breath, a tremble, a truth sharpened by loss. Ask who they served for." The door opened. Cold morning light spilled in, washing the courtroom's gray colors into something warmer, brighter, better. Tom stepped outside. The door closed behind him, and nobody sat until the latch clicked. He took a slow breath. Sun on his face. Birdsong in the distance. Life going on. The world always moves forward, even when hearts do not. He touched the metal gently. "Walk with me," he whispered. "To the air. To memory. To the boy who would forever be 23. Wind brushed his cheek. Soft, warm, almost like a hand. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. He started walking, boots steady on pavement. Not toward a battlefield. Not toward a headstone. But toward a day he would share, in quiet, with a son who still walked beside him, even if no one else could see. The world did not applaud. Cars passed. A dog barked. Life continued its rush. But somewhere in the silence between footsteps, something sacred lived. A truth older than medals or uniforms. Love does not end at the grave. Service does not end when the uniform comes off. A hero dies once. Parent carries that sacrifice for the rest of their life. And for today, just today, the world remembered that. If you ever see someone sitting alone with tired eyes and a quiet strength, Don't hurry past. Don't assume. Don't forget, some heroes walk slow now. Some speak softly. Some carry stories too heavy for sound. But if you listen, if you really listen, you might hear the echo of a salute, a rifle volley fading in the wind, the soft folds of a flag being pressed into trembling hands, and the heartbeat of a promise that never dies. No one who served, and no one who was loved, is ever truly gone as long as someone still remembers to stand.